How we doing, team? Welcome back to the Physique Cast, where we talk all things getting you more jacked, more shredded, so you can change your life with an epic physique transformation. I'm very, very excited to announce that this is our first guest episode featuring my man Ethan Harris, someone who I have a ton of respect for. Bro, I'll let you introduce yourself, some of your accolades, because I think it's safe to say that you're one of the biggest up and comers at the moment, especially when it comes to prep coaching. Got a lot of experience. Clients are killing it at the moment. Give us a rundown of exactly who Ethan Harris is, what you do, where people can find you, etc.
Cool. Hello, everyone. Yeah, I appreciate the kind words. I appreciate you reaching out to me as being, one of the first or the first person. I always do love a good podcast. You probably remember I used to do it back in the day, but it was just so much effort, and I find everyone's doing it now. So I am a coach, an online coach, as Kev is, for Enhanced by Harris. So to go back to it, I've been coaching now online and in person, but not in person anymore, for 8 years, 7 or 8 years. I think I started when I was 17. So I was quite early in the game. I kind of saw the loophole as such for online coaching when it was not too big of a thing. I did all the qualifications, which a lot of people haven't done. So my goal was to just kind of be at the top end of the spectrum for, to do what I could do apart from the experience side of things. So I did uni degree in sports studies. I did sports coaching and all that kind of stuff in college. I've even got like really pointless qualifications like FA, football, and basketball. I just tried to cover every aspect possible. And then I went into do personal training. I enjoyed personal training. I thought it was something I really wanted to do, but ultimately I just found I didn't like people. I didn't like people's goals, and I think the gym I was working in was very commercial, which I have no hate against at all. Like, I trained at commercial gym for a good 3-4 years and made decent progress on it. I just found everyone wanted to do the same time. Either it was like mums after the school run, or it was like people wanted to do it at a certain time on a Saturday before the football starts and things like that. And I was just like, I found myself either being there for an hour and getting paid to just chat to someone for which is amazing. I'll take it, but it just made me not want to train, because I was like, you are, a good part of your environment. And I was like, I don't like this at all. So I then went fully online. For those of you that know Josh Bridgman, 1MR, I was then his second coach. So we trained together. We got to know each other because I was coached by him originally. I then worked for Josh as a second coach for, I think, 18 months, and then left simply just because business was going good and it was the right thing to do. When I first joined Josh, it was a case of, he said to me, look, I'm not expecting you to be here forever. I'm not going to take all your money and all that kind of stuff. It was a case of, he wanted to help me progress myself as a coach, and in return, it makes him money as well. So that time came, left JBF Brigade. He did his own thing. I became Enhanced by Harris, and that was March last year. And since then, just been kind of ticking the boxes and getting at it, kind of growing myself as a human being, as a bodybuilder, and growing obviously my clients as well, and kind of assisting them towards their goals. So yeah, here I am now talking on the podcast.
Lovely stuff, man. Love to hear that, because that's what we're all about here. This game is just about progression, dude. Obviously, this year you did your first competition prep. Is it safe to say that that is the direction that Enhanced by Harris is going to move towards?
Um, I think I love putting people on stage. I love stepping on stage myself, which I didn't think I was actually going to enjoy. But equally, I think I enjoy the intricacies of putting people on stage, the peak weeks, the kind of finer details. But I do get lots of joy and just as much emotion from those kind of like life-changing transformations. The guys that can come in with really high blood pressure, just fat and just no motivation, not going in the right direction of their life. I enjoy those just as much as stepping on stage or putting people on stage. I think the intricacies in that ability to kind of have more contact and know that what I give someone, they're going to nail because they have to, does enjoy me. I've cried at normal transformations and fat loss transformations. I've also put, Jacob went on stage the other week and I cried equally just as much there. So I think I want to coach both people, but so the way I see my career going and the way I see things going, it's going to be more catered towards bodybuilding and photo shoots and get people on stage. I personally think, yeah.
Epic, man, epic. Because I think that was what I mainly wanted to kind of dive in today. Because I suppose a good opening question is, do you think that bodybuilding in the age of social media and stuff has become particularly glamorized? Because I know there were definitely some highs to your prep. I think
Mm.
it's fair to say that there were some lows. If you want to expand on that, and do you think that in the age of Instagram where everyone seems to be competing, do you think it's something that's becoming a little bit too glamorized?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Like it's social media is huge. People are posting what you want to see, and what they want you to see, and it's ultimately a lot of the time it's a business thing. Yes, I stood on stage for business, but ultimately it's a big thing I wanted to tick off. When you get lean, when you look good, people are going to start to come to you and they're going to start to think you're really good. But you don't see the intricacies of, your mental health, your financial position, your relationships outside of that as well, and how hard it really is. Because what I say to all my clients is if you say yes to this and you want to do it, there is turning back, but no isn't an answer. If I expect my prep clients to just say, yep, I'm going to do it, and obviously communicate when they struggle. But things like relationships go out the window, and people don't necessarily understand it unless you've explained it to them, and even then they don't get it. So relationships can go out the window. Financially, people don't realize how expensive it can be if you're doing more than one federation, more than one show. You've got to pay for that federation for the year, regardless of how many shows you're doing. Then you've got to pay for tan, you've got to pay for accommodation if you're going far away, you've got to pay for all this kind of stuff. And then to add to that even more in terms of finances, if you're assisted, that's an absolute bomb. Your bank account won't like that at all. And then like I said, mentally as well, it's very tough. I cried numerous times on prep. It's just very challenging in both senses. I cried because I was so proud of myself because I got further than I ever expected, but also because you can kind of just see it's very selfish because you're fully aware of what you're doing and you are watching people almost disappear from your life, but you're like, I've got this goal. So it's very tough. And also watching yourself, like there's parts in prep where you think, I look awful. Like, why am I doing this? I'm not ready for this. And then you get upset about that. And then you realize like actually it's just part of the goal. So it's definitely glamorized. I think people just expect to be able to turn up and prep and get it done and just actually get shredded. And I think that's another thing as well. People don't understand true stage condition. I think this year's been quite a good thing of it, and a lot of people are stepping on stage and they're just not lean. And it's they're going in for size, which is amazing, and it works in some federations and some shows. But when you really want to do well, you have to be lean. And like I said to you before, and I said to my clients recently, if the joys of it is as long as you compose and you can be as close to stage lean as possible, you're probably going to beat 60-70% of people on stage these days because so many people are just turning up and doing it. So many people, I remember quite vividly someone winning a show because he was like one of two, and his post stage thing, his interview was like, yeah, I just looked online of how to prep and I just followed some guys' exact directions of what he did for his 10-week prep. And obviously, as you can imagine, he wasn't shredded. He wasn't even lean. I'd probably say he looked how I looked when I was like 8 weeks out. So yeah, very glamorized. And I think what I always try to do, and you probably agree to this as well, is I've always tried to be open and honest. I've never been one to complain. I just simply see it as kind of making observations. I'm tired today. That's not me saying, God, I'm going to give up. It's just a case of, guys, I'm tired today. This is what it's about. Or I'm really upset today. Or I had a massive, a really good day today, a big drop today, whatever it may be, because people don't do that. Just suddenly, oh, I'm starting prep. Oh, I look really good. Oh, I'm on stage. Or and then, oh, I get to eat loads of food. And it's so much more than that, especially when you're doing longer preps. My prep was 20 weeks. And it does get tough. So yeah, definitely agree with you.
Yeah, talking a bit more about the process, man. As you said, in terms of client standards, it's very much a case of I say jump, you jump. Would
Yeah.
you say that that is what differentiates this level of physique development from something like a holiday or hell, even something like a photo shoot prep? Would you say the element of actually being competitive, getting in stage condition, is then that differentiation of Okay, you were under your steps by 1,000 today. No stress. That's not going to be that you show up to the shoot a pound over, not the
Yeah.
end of the world, still sweet transformation. Versus
Mhm.
on stage, you didn't get your steps in today. That's potentially gonna hold you back. That 1,000 steps could be the difference between you placing first, placing second, or depending on the lineup, not placing at all.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, so I think with bodybuilding and stepping on stage, you've probably got a rough weight you need to be, especially if you've got a cap, you're doing classic or men's physique or something like that. You've got a timeline that you have to be ready for. You've got a look that you need to nail. Yes, it's very subjective. At the end of the day, it's someone's opinion. The judges might like you, they might not. You could be the best on the day on paper, but they just might not like you. Um, yeah, I don't really. I'm not going to say I don't take no for an option because I heavily listen to what people have to say. As you know, you'd be like, I think I should do this or I think I should do that, and I definitely take that into consideration. But it's a case of if I was to say, right, we need to drive this deficit further. No is not the answer. It could be okay. We need to drive this deficit further, and you say, right, I'd rather do steps here. I'd rather do cardio. I'd rather take away from food. So in that sense of it, yes, you do get a bit of freedom, but ultimately, your coach is probably going to make you do it for that reason because the way they've suggested is probably the best. And then comparing it to a photo shoot, I think the joys of a photo shoot is you can have that shoot and you can determine what is shoot condition. You could lose 5 kilos and take do a photo shoot. You could lose 50 kilos and do a photo shoot. It's just that journey and, having that freedom as well. You can go and have an off-plan meal if you wanted to. And, obviously you let your coach know. And at the end of the day, if you're not too happy with it, it's a photo shoot. You're not being judged by that at all. And most people are happy with it. And it's just ability to that ability to look at it and progress and just be happy with it. So it is so much stricter. I think probably what I'd say is if you were to do a photo shoot of what I would deem as photo shoot conditions, so let's say maybe 6 to 8 weeks out, potentially depending on who you are as a person, that is when prep really kicks in. And you can probably agree there where like you think, oh, prep's pretty easy. It is pretty easy to start with. And then you get to like sub 10 weeks, 8 weeks, 6 weeks, and it just hits you. And I think that's the difference between a photo shoot and stage. And I think that's the difference between when you want to go out and have some fun and be like, it's only a photo shoot. And then the difference between being like, right, this is prep. This doesn't happen. Yeah.
100%, man, 100%. Would you say that because of how glamorized it's become, you see more people, because as you said, you see more people just doing it for the sake of doing it. Do you think that those expectations are somewhat being lost? People almost get into it not only for the wrong reasons, not, actually committed to doing the thing, but do you think that almost the expectations have been lost in terms of people don't actually quite realize how much it will take, how little food potentially, how much out of your time in the day to tick off all the steps, tick off all the cardio? Do you think that people have even lost touch with reality in terms of what's expected of those standards?
Yeah. I think too many people think it's going to be a breeze. And this is something I'll always say. Like, I will always over exaggerate of how prep's going to be and how you're potentially going to feel and what's going to happen because I'd much rather you prepare for the worst. And in some instances, the worst is going to be you're on zero carbs from 10 weeks out, you're doing an hour plus of cardio from 10 weeks out. It is definitely not unheard of to be doing, 90 minutes of cardio a day, it is an obscene amount. It is a lot. And, I think if you're in a good position to start prep, that shouldn't be happening or ideally won't be happening. But it is, I don't think anything's, I think anything can happen on prep, person dependent, lifestyle dependent, stress dependent, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, zero carbs for a long period of time is not necessarily a given, but it can definitely happen, and can definitely happen to a lot of people. And it's always the people that don't think it's going to happen that it usually happens to. When you think, oh, I'm in a really good position and this is going to be fine, and I'm bigger, I'm eating more food. Surely I'm not going to have to eat less food, and sometimes that's just the way. So yeah, I just don't think as many people are aware of what it really takes to be true stage condition, and is what we know to be true stage condition, not as someone stepping on stage and being like, I was stage lean. I really think the difference now is there is a big difference. I remember being 5 or 6 weeks out and telling clients I've got about 15 pounds to go, and they're like, 15 pounds from where? And then I literally lost, I think, 16 from that point exactly. And I was like, that's where it's coming from. And from like the normal eye, it was like there's not much difference. But obviously from the trained eye, from the judge's eye, there's a massive difference between that. And I think like the mindset of it all and the misunderstanding of it all also does a disservice to bodybuilders like myself and people that want to do well, because my one thing and what would have been the worst thing for me is if I turned up to a show where everyone was shit and everyone wasn't to the best of their ability, because it's just, it would be so hard for me to have dieted and done everything I could, telling myself every day they're not, they're doing more than me, they're working harder than me, they're going to be just as shredded as me, to then turn up and be like, mate, you look 6 weeks out. I think that does a disservice to me. What's the point of me working so hard? And that's probably the mindset people have. But also I think it affects the judging criteria, because year after year we get some years where the criteria is improved and it's a lot harder, and then sometimes where I think this year people are like, well, they weren't lean last year, so we're going to go for size this year, because they're just catering for what's put in front of them. And I think a big thing as well is like wellness these days, especially in like PCA and not the MPC route, is just people are stepping on stage just fat, unfortunately, and that's just fat in terms of bodybuilding standards. To the normal eye they probably look amazing, but and that's just the way it is now. They're just looking for the people that have bigger bums simply because there's more fat there, or they have bigger legs because there's more fat there, rather than because they actually fit the wellness criteria. So I think as a whole, it does everyone a disservice.
I agree, man. I agree. I think when the federation has to turn off the comments, something's up.
Yeah, 100%.
It's about that element of progression, isn't it? When you push yourself and you're pushing yourself to new heights, and the logic is almost as you said, I need to do this because other people are going to beat me if I don't. It then does that disservice. Would you say that that is the bit that you enjoyed most of prep, the actual prep component? Or would you say it was indeed the actual show day, which, as you mentioned, was actually almost like a pleasant surprise how much you quite enjoyed that?
I think, and I always used to feel weird saying it, but now I've kind of come to terms with it because of what it means to me. I think show day was probably one of the best days of my life. I think the day as a whole, stepping on stage was a bit of a blur. I remember stepping on and then just being called out as third, and that was cool. I enjoyed it. It was very emotional for me, and like even thinking about it, like it is very emotional. But I am someone that wants to be the best. I am very competitive, and I take good pride and joy knowing that I'm doing more than someone else, or at least what I think they're doing. I would take a lot of joy knowing, oh, that there's pro bodybuilders out here that are slipping up on their diet, and I've not done that, or I'm not doing that. I think I love them equally as much. Obviously, the joys of the show day and probably what excels it is the fact you can go and eat afterwards, and you can see your friends and family, and you have the ability to talk to them and take it all in. Whereas when you are dieting down and those weeks before, it's kind of like you want to do it, you want to start conversations, but you can't. So I enjoyed the dig of the prep, but I didn't enjoy the lack of emotion and all the issues that came with it. And then on show day, it was like, now I can show it all off and I can have the emotion as well, and I can go and talk to people too. So for me, I enjoyed them both equally. And even now I'm like, when am I going to prep again? I know I'm not going to do it for another 2 years, but it's like, oh, it's the depths of hell that I enjoyed, that we don't want to be in when we're in it. And then when we're out of it, we're like, yeah, let's do it again. Let's do it again.
It's
Yeah.
it's an accomplishment thing, I think. I think once you've done something to that high of a standard, I think it's the reward of having, as you said, basically competed. It's a condition that almost no other person on this planet, percentage wise, will ever do with their body. If you
Yeah.
can then actually then compete competitively on that stage, even more to that standard, you've then surpassed another level and gone not just from that person who is in stage condition, but actually in legit stage condition, actually competitive, which is awesome, man.
Yeah.
On that note, as you alluded to, some things that did sort of not necessarily go wrong, but it did cost you a lot. For reference, because I think part of actually that achievement is enduring something that's so unbelievably hard, and I think part of why the payoff is so big is because it's so disproportionately hard to anything else that you could do. As we said, it's not like a photo shoot prep or a holiday diet where you can miss a couple of times and still pull off something that could be deemed a success. It's that next level that it takes to get to that next level of conditioning in terms of food, in terms of cardio. And I think that's why the payoff in terms of how you feel on the day, if you can actually go through with that and nail it, the payoff's even bigger. What exactly, for reference for some people listening, so they have an idea and so there aren't those kind of misunderstood expectations? Because I've talked before about the 1,200 calorie low days that you know we'd put into my plan, the 90 odd minutes of cardio on training days, 60 minutes, 90 minutes on rest days, 60 on training days, 15K steps. You probably weren't too far off some of those metrics, were you? So do you want to give a bit of an insight in towards the back end of prep, or from how
So,
out it got pretty rough going?
yeah, so mine was a bit of a reverse of that. My goal was to, or what we did was, because we know how my body works, and obviously the more time you spend with a coach, you know kind of what works best. We kind of did the opposite. So from 7 weeks out, I had zero cardio. My food didn't move. My steps lowered. It was just the complete opposite of what we had to do with you. Whereas where it changed was when I started, and I've made stories on this before, people just thought I was lying of how much I was doing, and I went in straight away with let's go for it. Let's do everything. So from 2 weeks in, I was on sub 2,000 calories, which when you're eating 4,000 calories is quite, 50% of your food gone from 2 weeks in. From 4 weeks in, I was doing 55 minutes of cardio a day, was doing 12K steps a day. And that was the hard bit, but because I had the most body fat, I had the most energy, it was hard, but you get used to it quite quickly. So don't get me wrong, it absolutely sucked. But then the reward was that I was ready early. We got to seven weeks out and I was like, look, this is absolutely killing me. Like I'd wake up in the morning and just think, I'm so tired, I'm so fatigued, I don't want to wake up. But then I'd take off my cardio and then I'd come back and be like, there's nothing else I can do or give. And then realize, right, I've got check-ins to do, I've still got training to do, I've then got post-workout cardio to do, I've got steps to do. So when that came out, it was amazing. But I think people glamorize the food and they glamorize the cardio and glamorize, and it's almost like a flex of how much you're doing or how little you're doing. It's never like an in between. It's like, oh, I'm doing an hour of cardio, but then you get the other person like, well, I'm doing zero cardio, and they both kind of brag about it just as much. And I always say to clients, it's not the food you're eating, it's not the cardio you're doing, the steps you're doing, it's the body fat. Because I could have done an hour of cardio, I could have done the zero cardio I was doing. They both hurt just as much, because when I got to that level of body fat, it's your body, like essentially you are just killing yourself, right? It's not healthy for anyone. You've got no hormones unless you're assisted, and you're literally just killing yourself, right? Being at that level of body fat, when you get your bloods done, you realize, yeah, I am killing myself. But that's the thing. It's not the food. Obviously, it makes it more. It makes it feel better because you're eating more food, but ultimately you're eating the same amount of food compared to someone else, just relatively. So for Josh Bridgman, to go back to him, to eat 3,200 calories on his prep at the minute was the same as me eating 1,800 calories. He's just got more muscle, but at the same body fat, we're still in that same deficit together, if that makes sense. And that's what hurts. It's the deficit you're in. So yeah, like it's, as I said for you, it's completely different person to person. I have two clients that are stepping on stage this year that have done similar to me, because that's how they work. I have other clients where it's just going up and up and up and up. And, as a coach, I feel bad, just as I did for you. I'd be like, cardio's going up. And I'd be like, I don't want to put it up. I really don't. And I put it up and I'd send it to you and be like, right, we've done it now. We've just got to do it. So yeah. That's it. Yeah.
Sure, man. And as you alluded to there on the health side of things, of course, something that feels also almost a little bit glamorized now, because I'm in two minds about this. Obviously, rewind the clock maybe 10 years, and it was a case of people led on unrealistic expectations with physique when it came to ped use, claiming natural and things like that.
Mm.
Whereas now, I think because the industry's opened up so much more, I think not only is that actually somewhat glamorized PED use, but I think also now given unrealistic expectations in regards to what people are actually taking. It's gone from I'm natty, I swear, trust me, to it's just TRT, bro. Maybe like 100 milligrams of mast on top of that, trust me, and it's nowhere near close to that. So for reference, if you're are you comfortable sharing like what the total
Yeah.
like towards the back end of prep, for example? Because especially I think when orals start to add up and things like that, I think it gets to a pretty hefty total sometimes.
Yeah. I'm an open book, so I'm completely fine with that. So, also to note for reference, I've been on anabolics coming up to 4 years now. It may look like it's not been that long, but I've been on anabolics for 4 years. So obviously this is all based on me and what I needed. I have clients 10, 15 kilos heavier than me that have done more than half of what I did. So we started off, I think, about 400 milligrams total load, so not too much at all. And I think it was 200 test and then 300 mastron. And then by the end of prep, we went from that 400 milligrams total load to 1.5, 1.6 total load, which is a lot for me. 5'7", and on stage I was 156 pounds. And that was, for those that want to know, it was 250 tests, five or 600 mastron. We then wouldn't recommend the oral use I'm about to say, but this is what we did because I'm a guinea pig. 50 milligrams of Anavar from 12 weeks out was not smart. 50 milligrams of Winstory worked up to. I then had T3, T4 in therapeutic dosages. And then Superdrol we used just for kind of peak weeks and loading days. And for the fun of it, we did quadruple what we did on loading days on show day because I just thought, why not? It might work. And it didn't actually work in my favor, so don't do that. So yeah, I think total load was about 1.5, 1.6 per week, which was very toxic in my blood work. I'm someone that my blood work doesn't show what I'm taking. I respond very well. My bloods will recover very quickly. So I was literally like, it's going to show that I'm dead. And it was just the complete opposite. Like there was 2 markers out, and it took 4 weeks to fix and it was completely fine. But then clients that have done less than me have literally been triple as worse in terms of like blood work and stuff. So like I said, I took that because I knew I'd respond a certain way and it's what I needed, but also because I knew I could tolerate it. And the biggest thing is my risk was for that. For me, when I stood on stage, I said to Christian, because originally I thought I was going to hate it and I wasn't going to do it again. It was, give me whatever you think. If you told me to take 3 grams, I would have taken 3 grams. If you told me to take 3 grams and it would have killed me in 5 years at that time, I would have said yes. And looking back at it now, I probably wouldn't have done that. But I think when you're in the moment, it's just like, yeah, cool, let's do it. I'm going to look better, and that's all I need. So yeah, I did a pretty big amount for me.
You've learned things to take forward for next time, though, and I'm sure that will only work in your favor in regards to health and the look as you progress through your bodybuilding journey. The funny thing is, however, and you say that's a lot for someone of your size, but that's probably still not like uncommon for someone similar size. I think
Yeah.
as you probably have quite a few connections in the bodybuilding realm, I think those kind of cycles and even far beyond that are actually surprisingly common as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I know first timers, junior first timers like I was, that were doing 2 grams plus.
Yeah.
They'd also been doing it less for me. Whether that was their idea, it's normally the coach's idea, and it's just a case of the coach wants good results, and they'll make them and tell them they need to do it. Whereas, as you know, for me, it's like, right, I think we should take this. This is what's going to happen. If you don't want to do it, don't worry about it. Whereas a lot of people, it's like, oh, let's do a 30 transformation. I'm just going to put everyone on anabolics because they're going to look better towards the end of it. So yeah, people are doing stupid amounts. And I think the worst part is as much as the honesty is good, it's the honesty that messes people up in the long run because it's not unheard of. So people just think, well, he's doing it and he's smaller than me, so surely I need to do double that, which does ruin people. And they just don't take into consideration that individuality of it and how you respond as a person. And like I said, the biggest thing is the risks of it. Some people just aren't aware of the risks of it, which is the difference between me, because I'll go, here is the risk. If you don't want it, that's fine. Whereas people just going into it going, well, I'm going to grow, but they don't know the risks of it. So yeah.
That's kind of where I was headed with that. The fact that because people start putting out these crazy big cycles, and then because there's then those who are like, trust me, bro, it's just TRT. It creates this awkward like environment where people see the people being honest. They want to kind of confirm their own bias, so they listen to the idiots taking like stupid amounts. You listen to someone taking slightly more sensible amounts, and it's like, well, that can't be right. It makes more sense that to look
Yeah.
that good, you couldn't possibly be taking that much. I think that's mainly where the genetic variability comes into it. As you said, for prep, that was more so a case of what you needed to take to achieve that look for you. There are
Yeah.
probably naturals who can look better than that. And same with me. It's still a case of like people are like, oh mate, this guy's natural and looks better than you. It's like, I know, I accept that. I take
Yeah.
things. I
And like
couldn't I couldn't look like that naturally, so that's why I take things. I've
just
been
to,
I've trained
just
with
to add
pro
to
body.
that,
Go on.
well, yeah, so just to add to that, I was the only non-natty in my class. I was the oldest in my class. So I did first time as 3 junior bodybuilding. I was 24, not a junior. 3 days later, I came third out of 5 natties. And people are like, well, they're obviously lying. No, they're not. It's just bodybuilding is a genetic thing. I took, for me, copious amounts of anabolics, and I came third against natties that are just genetically gifted than me. They have, wider clavicles. They have the ability to grow better than me. And I think the winner was 2 months younger than me, but second place that beat me was like 2 years younger than me. So he was 21 to my 23. And it's just mental. Like when I used to say that, and I don't get butthurt about it anymore, but I used to be like, how have I come third to natties? Like, it's just not fair. But that's another thing as well. Like people just assume, well, if he's bigger than you and he beat you, it's just more anabolics, and it's not. It's genetics is what it is, really.
And that's a cool one, man, because I suppose that flows nicely. I'll quickly finish my point, which is the case of like, yeah, you take what you need to take. For some people, it'll be more, for some people, it'll be less. I'm comfortable knowing that there are naturals out there that will look, some of them will look better than I could possibly look on all the gear in the world. That's just the fact of the game. And we've both been, coached by very good coaches. We've
Mm.
both trained and learned from IFBB pros. We've both done courses, so there will be the naysayers who, at this point, I'm just like, you're a retard. You don't know what you're talking about. They say something like that, where it's just like, oh, then your training can't possibly be that good, or your nutrition. It's like, mate, I've worked with people who are quite literally like the best in the world.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
everything on paper says that I know what I'm doing. Some of my clients get bloody better results than I do. So clearly, while programming works, it is a case of that genetic variability. And I don't think I respond terribly to anabolics, but I think it's definitely safe to say that I'm not someone who's going to be an incredible bodybuilder almost no matter how hard I try. And I guess a cool follow up to you is now understanding the cost that this has taken, the financial impact, the impact on your health, the impact of just how hard a prep is. Now taking that all into consideration and thinking about genetics and drugs and everything it would take to get to that next level, how do you walk the line of thinking, I want to make this a long-term thing. I want to do that again. I know everything that has kind of like fucked up as a result of this. And to you, number one, what makes it worth it? Is it kind of then replicating and seeing like, this is how it made me feel then. I want to experience that again and possibly even better if I can, win the class next time. And how do you draw that then balancing act of this is actually probably pretty terrible in nearly every aspect, but I want to do it again.
Um, it's a bit of both, and I think what people need to understand is they need to take a picture, a step back and look at the bigger picture and understand it's at that point, and what the biggest part is it's you against you, unless you are an IFBB pro and you are an Olympian, because I could be 10 pounds heavier, could be 10 kilos heavier when I next step on stage, but still come third again, because different people are going to turn up, or the same people might turn up and have done just the same progress as I have. So it's looking at everything as a whole, looking at what you want from it, and your risks as well, knowing that I am going to be taking more next time I step on stage, because I do plan on stepping on stage again, and I'm going to be bigger and more experienced into the anabolic kind of realm. So it's a case of wanting to do it and wanting to be better and happy to do it, but also what a big thing has been like my future. I want to have kids, I want to have a family, I want to kind of do all that stuff as well. So it's finding that fine line of, rather than not, I think I'll push equally as hard when I next prep, but being smarter in my off season, being smarter in the points that really matter. I am someone that gains body fat very quickly and very easily. And it takes a pound, I can gain a pound and you can look like I've lost gain 5, but then on the way down, the good thing is I can lose a pound that looks like I've lost 5. So we've taken the approach this time of just being slow, letting training performance do the talking. Drug load is minimal for me. It's literally a third of what I was doing in prep, but growing just as much and kind of just playing the long game rather than like I love stepping on stage. I then didn't go right. I'm going to do it next year. I went right. I'd love to do it again sooner rather than later, but also I know if I take things a little bit slower, get the most from the least as you're supposed to be doing, I can go back bigger, better, healthier, and push myself just as hard in prep and not have as much risk because I was in a better position to start with. That 20-week prep could be a 15-week prep because I'm leaner. That 1.5 drug load could still be 1.5 in 2 years' time, but because I'm bigger and I'm more responsive, I get that as well. So like it's a tricky one. I would quite happily do it all again in prep and put my risk in that prep. Just I wouldn't put as much risk in the off season that I was doing. As much as drugs are everything, as the smart people know, it's the food and it's the training that are going to do it. You know, it's the food and the training that's going to allow you to grow. And you can look even deeper, which is what I've been doing. It's like, you know, not just the food you're eating, but how are you digesting that food? You know, how are you sleeping, how you're recovering. That's going to do the damage. That's going to do the increases. And if you can push those higher and improve those, you don't need as much drugs. I am growing the quickest I ever have done. And people that follow me will know that. And like I said, I'm doing a third of what I was doing on when I was prepping in a deficit.
That's a,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a really good insight, man. And I think that once again shows that regardless of the compound usage and what people might deem to be high or low, or you look great for someone who's on, or you don't look great for someone who's on, there's no denying that the fundamental and the common denominator should just be doing everything else in your power to limit the amount that you would need to take to get the results. And then that's almost kind of the last piece of the puzzle. And that just then falls on things like genetic variability. It's like if everyone's doing the perfect training, perfect nutrition, if they exist or as close as you can get, then it's a case of what do you need to grow? For some people to get to a certain look, they're going to need more than others. And then you kind of hope that number one, you respond well and you don't need as much. Or if you do need more, then you hope that you're one of those like yourself where maybe your blood markers don't take too much of a hit as a result.
Yeah.
But that's a really good insight, man. And I think on that note, that's then transitioning back into the off season. I think is actually a pretty sweet spot to wrap things up. But on that note, guys, as you can see, Ethan is really clued up when it comes to performance enhancements. I know you've done courses, man. Obviously, you've got a decent bit of personal experience at this point. You work with some very skilled coaches. If anyone does have any questions or any coaching inquiries, particularly on the PED front, Ethan is your man. I straight up just recommend it because I don't even like to do stack design with my clients. I think at this point, as far as I get into helping anyone with their PED usage, is number one, encouraging them to do blood work when people can be very stubborn. And as you said, I think it's fair to say that a lot of the cost financially of using anabolics is in regular blood work because a cycle isn't going to be particularly expensive if you're not running oceans of primo. But the blood work is where it really adds up. So usually I'm telling people, don't be an idiot, take your bloods now. I'd like to see what's going on. And also when someone says, what do you think about adding Anavar? And it's like, well, you're in an off season, so your appetite's probably going to take a hit. It's not going to do anything in terms of anabolic properties that a different compound wouldn't do because most compounds are all going to be approximately just as potent as each other as growing lean actual muscles. Sure, the look can differ a little bit from compounds, but that's why now it's actually like, no, don't be an idiot. No, you don't need to add in Tren or Anavar. Just that's as far as I get. So anyone who's more into the bodybuilding and the extremes and wants to do that in the most responsible manner possible, there's no such thing as safe, only safer. But if that sounds like your boat, then Ethan's definitely the man for you. He's helped me make a ton of progress in that regard while also keeping, I think in the entire time that we work together, I think the only thing that's actually come back slightly out of range every once in a while is my LDL. That's very mildly out of range and something that's easily remediated, especially if you have the coach at hand to teach you how to remediate those factors and keep things in check and be as safe as possible with sensible stack design. So, dude, I appreciate you massively coming on. Everyone hit him up at Ethan Harris on Instagram. I think there's a couple of X's in your name as well if you want to quickly have the plug.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Yeah, like just to kind of go on to that, if I'm assuming your clientele, like you said, aren't heavily roided up. Guys, if you're thinking of anabolics, don't necessarily have to come to me or anything, but if you have a coach and you're considering it, a good coach will tell you exactly why you shouldn't do it. They should tell you every single risk involved of every single compound and the potential side effects, whether they're there or not. If you are going to your coach and saying, I want to take anabolics, and they're not talking you through that process of what can happen, what might happen, what will happen, then you are with the wrong coach. I will tell all of my clients, right, this is the risk, this is the potential reward. Is it even worth it? Because, you know, when you become more experienced and you get more of a skilled eye, for some people, it's just straight up not worth it. You know, I could give you 3 grams of gear, and like you said, you're just not going to grow. So be smart, go to the right people, which I know is very hard because everyone tries to sell themselves. But if they're not telling you what you don't want to hear, yeah, if they're telling you what you don't want to hear first, they're the right person for you. If they're just telling you yes, then they're probably not the right person for you. But yeah, I appreciate you inviting me on. It's been good. It's been fun.
Yeah, no, that's a great insight, man. I always like to pride myself on I've probably put more people off taking anabolics than I've helped go on. Usually what happens now is that someone will be like in my DMs or something saying like, "Oh mate, I've just started taking this. What do you think?" And I'm just like, that's a fucking terrible idea. And then you point out like a couple of quick basics with stack design, and then they realize that they don't know what they're doing. And then you haven't even had the chance to actually talk them out of not taking anything. They join you off the back of their first cycle to be less of an idiot with it. Have you had that one a few times?
Yeah, I've had lots of those before. I've turned away countless amount of potential clients for that reason. And I think kind of just pushing that towards competing as well and dieting down as well. I think a good coach should tell you the exact same reasons why you shouldn't do it, what to look for, what the risks are. Because same again, I've had a lot of people wanting to prep and me just saying you're not ready and you don't want this. If they're not going through the financial implications, you know, are you financially stable, which can mean a lot of things? Are you mentally stable? Are you physically stable? And is your surroundings and your circle stable? Then you need to probably look at someone else and you need to take a bigger consideration of competing or photo shoot dieting if it's intense. And for anyone out there, if you are thinking to yourself, am I financially stable? Am I, you know, what do all of these imply? Just give me a message and I'll gladly help you for free, or, you know, give Kev a message as well. And I'm sure he'll gladly help you. But just go to someone, and if they're telling you all the bad things first, you're probably on the right track, basically.
Yeah, I've got screenshots and screenshots that I could put out there. Because at this point, I'm never going to say never, but when I kind of weigh up where I'm at now, and I think that was one of my biggest problems earlier this year. We had our thing going. It was
Yeah.
really, really good. And off the back of that, I was like, you know, it is my last chance as a junior. I pressured myself into that situation. And that
Yeah.
was what actually ended up biting me in the ass in the end. It was all the pressure, all the other stuff that was going on alongside. You did a fucking fantastic job with that. And I think if it was another year, that would have been a hella success because we did literally make it just shy of the bloody finish line. It was just the other life stuff that ended up getting in the way. So I think that's a very, very sensible point. So yeah, no, I appreciate you coming on, man. An incredible, incredible insight. Thank you everyone for watching. If you managed to take some value from this, please, please, please give it a share because this is stuff that a lot of people don't talk about. They ain't as raw about what that next level of physique development can entail. So if you enjoyed, please give it a share. We'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.